Good afternoon. I'm Dee Knutson, City Councilor, and I would like to call our November 5th informational meeting to order. We'll start out, first of all, with our City Council staff report from Deborah Owen, please.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. What a blustery day out there, I should say. Just a couple of things to remind you. There are two committee meetings this afternoon following the informational. One is fiscal and one is land use. And also to let you know what Jameson's request, which has to do with the rescission of an executive order 06-66, which had to do with a travel policy. To let you know, I think you've been given a copy in your mailboxes, but that is a rescinded executive order per Mayor Munson, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Excuse me. Let's run through our our next item will be a report from Mayor Munson's staff, and our Director of Finance, Jean Roanhorst, is going to review the performance management program, give us an update, and then Vernon and Deborah are very welcome to add on wherever they wish.
Jean Roanhorst, Director of Finance. What we wanted to do today was give you a little bit of an overview of where we're at with performance management, and there's really going to be two pieces to it. One is the actual performance management structure and how we're addressing that issue. The other piece is the issue of a citizen survey, and we've got two PowerPoint presentations that we'll use to do that with. First thing is on the performance measurement. We talked with a lot of people, and one of the key players that we engaged with is the director of King County, Washington performance measurement program. We met him out in Washington, D.C. when we went on our trip out there with Councilman Brown and Deborah Owen went with us. And he's been very helpful in giving us some direction in what we were doing. One of the issues that we're having with performance measurement was really trying to get from the theory and that we've been trying to deal with to how you get into real actual performance measurement matrices. And frankly, we were struggling with it. And Mike Hall did some research, and he came across ICMA. That's the International City County Management Association. It's an organization that its members are either, tend to be at any rate, city managers or an elected official like a mayor might be a member of it, and conceivably council members. So if they have a criteria for it, you got to kind of go through it and see whether you can be a member or not. But we are familiar with the ICMA because it runs our 457 plan, runs our 457 plan for us. And they provide a lot of other services to the municipalities and counties. They have a canned program, if you will, of performance measurements. They have like 15 different areas that they measure, and the neat part is we would get to use their database to compare ourselves against others, plus it has the questions and it comes up with the reports at the end that seem to be appropriate. So we pretty much decided, in fact we're in the process of getting the contract signed right now with ICMA to run that particular part of our program. That their annual fee for running the program is about $5,500, and they will we also, for the first year for training, we have a $4,000 training class that they will come out here. They will meet with the people that are going to be most involved and get us started in the right direction as far as gathering up data. So the nice thing about it is a canned format that has some consistency to it, but we can always add to it. We probably won't be doing much of that the first year until we learn exactly what we're doing with performance management, but you can add to it. There is the ability to customize it, but there also is the need to keep it consistent so we can compare ourselves to other municipalities and cities. So that part of it seems to be moving along. We should, by the end of January, maybe into February, we should be pretty well set for 08, and we'll have an 08 report coming out of that particular piece of it. The second part is the citizen survey part. They have a citizen survey that goes with the, if you so choose to use it, goes with the performance measurement part of their program. It has a, you've got the price list there. I laid out some pieces of paper for you to give you a little detail on it. But you have the price list there for the services, different services that they offer. And I think, Councilman Brown, I think we have pretty much agreed that the survey is probably the way to go, but the big issue is, do we do telephone versus paper? And we're having a lot of discussion over that. The set of slides that I've got will clearly be biased in the favor of a paper mail survey. That doesn't mean that I'm endorsing it or anything like that. It's just that's what they tend to like. They will do a phone survey if we want to do that. So, and we'll discuss that more later. But to start out, Councilman Brown had some slides that he would like to start with. I think they're very good ones. They came from well, I'll let him explain it. But so we can get us jumped off here, and then I'll come back up and take you through the one from ICMA.
These slides really come from this book that actually Mark Cotter brought to us and Sally Felix secured for the entire committee. It's called Measuring Up 2.0. It's a very simple, easy, and actually an entertaining read as well. So we're going to go through just a few of the slides and back up a little bit from where Gene was to explain so we can get our arms around this performance measurement, because it's not an easy thing to do, first of all, but to completely grasp. But we're going to walk through it. We all know the government is good at tracking money in and money out. But government should really do much more than that. What is the outcome, the result of taxpayer dollars spent? This is a paraphrase quote from the second bullet point there from the book. Taxpayers have grown tired of looking at budgets devoted to columns and numbers related to tax collections and spending. What they want to know is what the city is actually getting for all the spending, the results. So what does that take? It takes lots of data, and most of it, as we've discovered, and Gene can attest to this, it already exists in city government. We have it available. It's just not being used to measure performance at this time. There are all kinds of phrases and terms that can be used in performance measures, but these are the four most important, I think, that we all need to learn. Inputs. Now, in the book they talk about, they use food stamps as an example. We're going to change it for the purposes of city government to police. So what are the inputs? Money spent for resources. Those would be the cars, the guns, the radios, all the equipment officers need. The activities. Those are the actions taken to turn inputs into outputs. In our example, it would be police responding to the calls for help. The outputs are the products delivered. In the police example, it's the number of calls that are responded to in a year. And finally, the outcomes, which this body should be most concerned about, the results. Do we have a safer city as a result of the inputs, activities, and outputs? So measuring those outcomes should be the council's goal. I have a couple of really good examples from the book. This one comes from the New York City Police Department. Rudy Giuliani really implemented this, but it's been practiced in cities far and wide, large and small. They closely track crime stats, patterns, and trends daily so they can deploy the resources based on prevention instead of just reacting to where the crime is happening. So an increase of a certain type of offense in a certain part of town at a certain time of day, they were able to get ahead of the crime, which is much like what we did in the Midtown neighborhood last year. They had a number of homelessness examples. The next one is also an example from New York where they did analysis of neighborhoods where the residents seem most vulnerable to falling into the shelter system. And then they tried everything from rental assistance to job and marriage counseling, which on the surface of it sounds very expensive. However, we know even in our own community that each chronic homeless person costs us $33,000 a year in resources. So it's much cheaper to follow this and track this and get them safety nets to prevent that homelessness, which in the end costs taxpayers more dollars. This has had some early tests in communities, and it's showing some success. Another example, this is from Chicago, I believe, yes. They track there how often a person or a family does a return trip to the food pantry to pick up food. The repeat users are assigned caseworkers to help those clients in job training and placement. And Chicago has seen a 270% increase in job placement by those caseworkers with public housing residents. The next example is a little closer to home in Des Moines, and this tells us exactly why the survey is an important component of performance measurements, because they did surveys in Des Moines, and they learned in their second performance report that citizens were unhappy with the street conditions. So their city council there reprogrammed $6 million towards streets resurfacing. Citizens wanted it. They were happy with the result. They were happy with the action taken by their city council. The next one is not an example that would fit our city government, but I think this quote really summarizes well what performance measure thinking and philosophy is about. This quote says, if we're really going to get a handle on budgeting, then the question shouldn't be, do we have enough money for this many jail beds? The question should be, do we have the programs in place so that we don't need so many jail beds? So it's a really shift in thinking, a more progressive approach of finding the safety nets before the problems happen, when those problems end up costing taxpayers more. So how do we get citizens involved? Well, Jean has touched on one of them, asking their opinion on what services they value, what concerns them, and what they're willing to pay for. And that helps us in our discussions. And then issuing an annual report for everyone to be able to read and see the outcomes of city government, the results, what has worked, what they favor. Did we meet the goals set by the city and demanded by the citizens? If not, how will we retool them for next year? So how do we judge our success? Will we meet every goal? No. And one of the things that we talked about, all the organizations in Washington when we were at that conference talked about, you can't punish departments for not meeting the goals. It's okay to punish if they don't evaluate what went wrong and don't come back with a plan for improvement, but don't use measurements to punish them, because there are many factors that can go wrong. It's a tool to use to continually improve what we're doing as a city government. And then really the theme of any performance measurement is, and this we heard this over and over, what gets measured gets done. That's what it's all about. So what are the benefits for the City Council, this body? One, it helps us gauge what the public is thinking in a better way through a scientific survey. Two, we as a council can help develop that survey. Although the questions in the ICMA for the most part are already standardized, there is room for us to ask specific Sioux Falls questions and find out criteria for our area and the way our city operates to make sure that citizens have input. And finally, probably the best result for the City Council is that it elevates our budget discussions from just being about the numbers and columns and money in, money out. It takes it to a new level where we can discuss, are we getting the results that we asked for? And our citizens getting the results that they asked for through that scientific survey. So that touches on both elements of what performance measure is and then what the survey portion of it is. Jean has more in particular on the survey.
Part of our solution, as I talked about, to the issue of a citizen survey is the program that's run by ICMA, and as I said before, it ties into the performance measurement program itself. This is a turnkey citizen survey service that's offered by the ICMA and something called the National Research Center out of Boulder, Colorado. And the National Research Center is the organization that actually runs the survey. The National Citizen Survey, the principals of this company that runs it tend to be professors that are employed by, is it Boulder, the University of Colorado, is it Boulder? Is that the one? Or Boulder State, whatever. The Buffaloes, that's all I know.
Colorado.
So they've got some pretty heavy-duty people that understand statistics, and they've grown this program in 5 years from virtually nothing to over 200 counties, municipalities, that are now part of the program, and that's one of the good parts about the whole thing is we get to use that database and we'll have access to it. It's cost effective. As I say, it's about $5,500 a year to run the survey. You can customize the survey with particular things that might be of interest to the City of Sioux Falls. I don't know how many. I think there's 3 or 4 that you'd be able to do in each one. And then, of course, you have the benchmarking piece of it that really adds a lot of value to it. As I've said before, I'm not a big fan of measuring or of comparing to someone else and saying that's what justifies it, but what comparison does is gives you a reasonableness check of where you're at and whether you're doing the right things. The purpose of the survey would be to monitor trends in the residents' opinion. Councilman Brown talked about doing it annually. Some do it every other year rather than doing it just annually, or rather than doing it annually. It measures government performance. You get a sense of support of the local policies. One of the biggest values that I think you can get out of one of these surveys is you have sound statistical evidence of the attitude of the citizens as opposed to the anecdotal evidence, which is really what we work off of today. Somebody calls you on the phone and says thus and so is an issue. Well, is it that one person or is it 90% of the city? And the survey will help you a lot in doing that. As Councilman Brown pointed out, it'll change the way that your budget is being done because you'll focus on projects and programs. Strategic planning decisions can be made. Probably another big one that I think would come out of it is the communicating with residents. People would feel, I'm sure, like they're being listened to, and you have some sound, like I say, scientific-based evidence when you get back with it, but it'll feel like the citizens have some real input to it. And then the benchmark service ratings, that will give us something to compare to for a reasonableness check. Kinds of questions that I ask: quality of life in the community, quality of local government services, residents' participation in local activities. For instance, the question will be asked, how many times have you visited a city park? And I shouldn't say this question, but like this, a question like this: Have you visited a city park in the last 30 days? Have you visited a city park in the last 6 months? Have you visited a city park in the last year? How many times? Questions like that to give you some sense of what's really showing up there. Policy options will be probably brought to light, and the community demographics. There will be questions. One of the things that obviously the people that live west of Minnesota Avenue in our redevelopment area have a different view of the city's success than the people do down at 85th and Louise. And this will come out in a demographic format, so we'll know about ages, as far as who's responding, what ways, things like ages, what part of the town do they live in, perhaps education levels. I'm not sure of all of that. Customized questionnaire with, now this is when you actually send it out, how they do it, a customized questionnaire with a community logo and local signature. So probably if we did this, what we would do is have the mayor and the chairman of the city council sign a correspondence that would go out asking for participation. There would be 1,200. Now this is using the mail type survey, so keep that in mind. Like I say, it's clearly biased that way, and I'm not endorsing it, and nobody is at this point, one way or another. But they send out they select 1,200 residents postcards and followed up by 2 survey mailings. They do the data processing or crunching the numbers, the analysis, and they would generate a final report and also give us a normative comparisons across the U.S. so they compare us to similar type cities. Why the survey is conducted? Well, why don't we skip this one because it clearly says, they're arguing that it's paper-based works better. How they do it, it gives you another sense of this random selection of the households, unbiased selection of one member. They have a process of how to get somebody in a household that would be over 18, preferably the head of the household, but you wouldn't end up dealing with a child. Multiple, and then this is part of the mailing, although they would follow it up the same way with phone calls. Follow-up mailings to remind them to fill it out and return it. And then the statistical weighting of the sample so that the survey demographics reflect the most recent census. So they've got they're using the right process in getting the survey conducted. What kind of customization can you do? You can choose core services from a list of more than 40 services that you look at. You can create a subset of questions specific to a jurisdiction. So we could go to the census tracts that essentially would include west of Minnesota Avenue, and we could ask them particular questions. There's open-ended questions. You can increase the sample size. One of the things you have is a price list there for increasing the sample size. Spanish versions, I don't know if we'd use that or not. We have a respectable Hispanic population in the city anymore, so that may be done. The big key that starts to happen is you compare your results from year to year, or from prior years at any rate. And that's really the big thing. The first thing that this survey would do is basically drive a stake in the ground and say, here's where we're at. And then you start moving forward from there, and the trending over time is what will really be the most helpful part of the process. You get to compare your data to other local governments, and we cross-tabulate survey questions by respondents' demographics so we know what's going on in different parts of the city. And this is just a couple of charts that would show up and that they would do in their normal report that they do. And then here's some examples of questions, like I said, public information services, excellent, good, fair, poor, ambulance, emergency services. You know, how do you rate the quality of them? And then in the last 12 months, about how many times have you ever, you or your household members, done the following things? Visited a neighborhood or XYZ ABC Park, volunteered your time to some group activity in ABC. Those are just a sample of questions type questions that would be asked. The data on the trends of the residents' opinions across the U.S. Come from 300 different jurisdictions. So they've got a lot of people that we're working with, a lot of municipalities and counties in particular. They have over 100,000 respondents that they've received, represents 30 million Americans, city, counties, townships, and villages. So they're all across the board, and they would pick out a set that would, to compare us with, that would be kind of fit our demographics. The basic service is $8,400, and you have the list there for the kinds of things that we could add onto it. You can increase the sample size up to 3,000 residents, which would get you a 2.5% plus or minus. At the 400 level, that's a 5% plus or minus. So one of the things to be considered is how precise do we want to be and what are we willing to pay for. The price does not go up linear. It has a geometric curve when you raise the samples and the accuracy. Inclusion of open-ended questions, we'll be able to put some of those in there, so it'll be part of the process of getting this thing going. The validity of the report, and this is something that's very important in this whole survey process. It's very important. It'll give a description of how the survey methods were performed, and then they will explain the processes. For those of you that are into statistics, would be able to figure out exactly how the thing worked and how many responses and that they received, and how the process came to the conclusions that it did, plus or minus whatever measurement we have at this point. And this is the National Research Center, as I said earlier. That's out of Boulder, Colorado, that actually does the survey. We had about what, Councilman Brown, about an hour phone call with them last week and talked at length about how to do this. So. And that takes care of the survey piece of it. Councilman Brown and I can answer any questions I guess you might have about it and where we're at with the process.
Thank you, Jean and Vernon, very much. Any questions? Councilor Stagers?
Yeah, I just got a quick question here on the 1,200 questionnaires that will be sent to households. How many of those do they expect to be actually returned?
That's the 400 that they need to get back.
Okay.
For 400, for a response of 400, that would give you a 95% accuracy plus or minus 5% requires 400 are returned.
Okay.
And that applies to whether it's a telephone survey or a mail survey.
Councilor Jameson?
Jean, when you look at the price sheet that they've got here that outlines the different, and are we talking 1,200 or 3,000 surveys?
Well, I guess we haven't really honed in on that yet. Like I say, doing 1,200 gets you that 95% plus or minus 5%. If you went up to 3,000, that's when you get up into a 95% accuracy plus or minus 2.5%.
Okay, and then the program that you're talking about, you're leaning toward the written,
No,
the phone?
I'm not leaning any direction.
Oh, okay. The committee, then, are they leaning toward phone or written?
Councilman Brown, was shocked in our phone call. They made a strong argument for mail surveys. It flies in the face of anything you hear recently that phone surveys are much better. Frankly, as long as we go with the ICMA program, we're basically indifferent to whether we do a mail survey or a phone survey. The biggest question and the biggest concern that I have, in order for this to be effective, the council needs to be comfortable and the council needs to buy in. So whatever we do, we need the buy-in of the council or it will be a wasted effort.
Bob, if I could...
And if you're concerned about paper versus phone, we have to work that one out.
If I can just touch on your question, I do a little bit of survey work in my job, and the companies that own our company also do. So I came into this very biased. We can't do by mail because everything I've ever read says that's just not, you don't get a good return rate. It's not, the responses you get are biased. They make a good argument for it. I'm getting there. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'd be curious to what the council thinks as well. The bottom line is both surveys are scientifically sound, so it's just a matter of what we as a body prefer.
The same reliability, both mail and for the written?
Some statistician knows how to make it statistically correct, depending on if it comes by snail mail or by phone. They're able to weight them to make them scientifically sound. So I myself am not quite there yet, but after hearing their discussions, they make a good argument to that letter surveys do work as well.
Do they ask the same number of questions on the mail versus the written?
They're identical.
Thank you.
Councilor Benega?
My question, Gene, is when they give the final report to us and compare us to other communities our size, do they also use the same form of government, with charter form of government, as one of the criteria?
I guess I don't know. We haven't gotten that deep into it as far as how they select the peer group, which is what you're really talking about. Okay. But that would be one of the things we would. I don't know that they would identify the particular peer groups. I don't know if they hold that confidential or not. But at least we would know what the peer looked like. There would be some description of this is a city of 150,000. Very small minority population, average ages or age groups or something like that. We would know something about the peers. I don't know if they'd actually identify the peer group or not.
Okay.
Gerald, I think that they probably concentrate more on services delivered than types of, I'm guessing that. I haven't looked through the entire survey.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
I have similar concerns that Vernon does with regard to mail versus telephone. But you have to understand that there are downsides to the telephone survey as well. There's simply no perfect methodology anymore. It used to be. I've been involved in surveys for 20 years in my job, and it's we used to routinely get very, very high response rates, and now it's half to a third of that. And the thing that we need to look for is what are the qualifications of the vendor. And I think that's extremely important. And Gene has talked about this, and I can't explain it, and he can't either. But they certify that these things are statistically valid, and that's the key. If you can do that, in many respects, people would argue that the methodology, how they did the survey, is irrelevant. It's the fact that they got those people and they got valid responses. And I think that's the thing we need to concentrate on. I obviously would be very interested in knowing, how much we can customize this to our own needs. But I think it's an exciting concept for us.
Councillor Litz?
Gene, early in your presentation, you mentioned the sum of $5,500, and then I'm seeing here our basic service is $8,900. Did I miss something? Are we talking about the same thing?
Yes, there's two different. The 5,500 is the performance measurement part of that, the actual performance measurement category. Plus, there's a $4,000 training fee the first year, so that's 5,500. Deborah,
I was just going to say, I think there's the program is the 5,500 and the 4,000.
Yes.
That's the ICMA's program for performance measurement. The survey is a separate component, and that pricing is here. So there's a program component which the administration is looking at utilizing. The survey, so that the council would probably move forward with, and those are the pricing for that. Just the survey.
What you have there is the pricing for the survey.
Okay, but that is necessary as well as the basic service, is that correct? Plus the $4,000?
No, well, if you do it, and it's not required, no. See, it's a separate deal. The survey is separate. It ties right into the performance management program, but the survey is a separate deal, and that's the pricing sheet that you have there for the survey services. We don't have to do that.
Okay, I understand that. What I was getting at is we're going to have some more upfront costs in the beginning, and then like the $4,000 will drop off the second year we do this.
You've got the pricing for the survey there. The $4,000 is for the program, and that will drop off. To run the program annually is $5,500. That gets you all of the data processing services that they will have. We'll give them the information that we gather. They'll load it into their system and run the analysis on it as far as the performance management part program that they operate. The survey and the performance management part are two separate programs, but the survey ties back into the program if you want to use it.
Okay, but what I was trying to get at is our startup costs, and then later on we will drop back into some regular operating costs.
Not for the survey. As I understand it, the survey is what you see there. It'll be $8,000 plus some change for every time that you run the survey. And that's why there's some thought to, do you really want to do it annually, or do you want to do it every 2 years?
Thank you, Gene.
Some municipalities have run it once and they never do it again. Doesn't make any sense because they're losing the value, but that's the way that they've done it.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Kavanaugh, sorry.
Well, what's our next step? Where do we do you need some consensus from the council? Where do you want us to go with this?
Well, we're interfacing with Councilman Brown at this point. I assume we would do the legwork in that with it, but we have to, some way we're going to have to come to a consensus, and like I say, really get council buy-in. That this thing will not work without council buy-in, or it would work. We'd still get the analysis, but it would be of little value if the council's not bought into it, because without buy-in, you're not going to react to the survey. And if you got buy-in, then you'll react to what the findings of the survey are and use it the way it should be used.
We're meeting again, having a conference call with ICMA on, what What day is it, Gene? Wednesday, I think.
Next week, yeah.
And
Or is it this week? This
if
week.
any of you have thoughts, and I know we're dropping a lot on you all today, but if you have thoughts about the survey and methods, if you want more information about that, Mike Hall can certainly help us out get that, and I can get it on to. But I'd appreciate any thoughts you have on the survey, what method you want to use, so we're all on the same page as we move forward with this.
Councilor Benega?
Gene, if you had the opportunity at this point to run some of these philosophical ideas with city directors to see how they would feel comfortable with the whole performance measurement responsibility versus what we've been doing for a number of years. I know change is difficult, but also, frankly, there's a lot of benefit to some of those changes.
Change is difficult. The deal with the performance measurement program, we've kind of taken the attitude that y'all come. If you want to be in it this year, that's great. If you don't, we're going to have more than enough to keep our hands full to take care of certain departments that have stated their wish to be in it. Probably one of the bigger things that would tie in with this is the fire department and the fire chiefs across the nation have endorsed the fire department part of this transaction. Rick said that his program, if they just do it through the fire chiefs, would cost $1,600. It appears that we would save that $1,600 if we paid the $5,500 and fire would be in it. Fire is going to be in it anyhow. That's a done deal already for Sioux Falls. And I'm almost 100% sure that Parks and I know Public Works will be in it. Maybe not all of the parts of Public Works, but certain parts of it. So, there's Sally wants in it. So it's the kind of thing as far as people being threatened by it, and that can come out of this because you don't use failure to punish people, but there's still going to be a standard there. And so some people are excited about it and some aren't so excited about it, and that's fine.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line for me, and it's certainly not a black and white issue at this point, but the council obviously needs to buy into it, but also the directors need to have some buy-in to it also, because the results that we will get will have to be managed, and those are the day-to-day responsibilities of the directors. So
I think with the way the process will work, we will have most, if not all, that will participate in it at some level, and peer pressure will bring along the ones that are, and just a level of comfort. Once somebody's been through it and see the results, oh, wow, maybe that will work in my department. So,
is there also a necessity, if you will, to do this in conjunction with the way we're currently doing business, maybe for a year, just to look at results, or not? From a budgeting standpoint?
I think I'm accurate in saying we, the city, the council, acts primarily on anecdotal evidence. And we don't have any basis for why we do what we do other than the anecdotal encounters we've had with the citizens, which is as good as we can get at this point. With the survey, you're going to have a lot more something that's sound that you can deal with and feel a lot more like this is what the community really wants as opposed to...
If I could just address that, Gerald, too, that I look at this as enhancing what we already do. It's not like Gene's going to stop tracking money in, money out. This is just an enhancement to that. And I don't want to drag this out too long, but Mark Cotter, if you could just talk for a minute about what advantages you see in your department moving towards performance measurements. While he comes up, one of the most fun things about this program has been when we came back from this conference and started putting this together, the directors that jumped on board, he mentioned Rick Larson, Sally Felix, Mike Hall, they're all very interested in this and see a value in it as well.
Well, Mark Cotter, with Director of Public Works. I think, just in brief, I think it's a good piece of as we budget for the next year. First of all, we we have historical data, but I think the key part is as we set the target based on a certain budget, were we able to meet it? And then also the reverse is, did we check with the citizens, and is that the level of service that they expected? And so I think the key is always is, if we're here to improve and to best spend the dollars, is that we first have to establish the merits of the program, set the target of where we want to be at that given point, and then manage the program to it. So, Public Works, one of the things that we heard when we were in D.C. is that, and we're one of the departments that could probably measure 1,500 things every month. And that's probably one of the key mistakes that happens in performance measurement, then transverses into management, is they really want you to figure out 3 to 5 key things per program, measure it, give a 1 to 2 sentence update if you hit the target or didn't, and then you come back the following year. But there's a lot of things that have occurred in the federal government since back in '93 that to substantiate your budget either at its current level or more, you have to be performing through their target system. And so, in many respects, that can be used throughout the city, as if you are asking for an increase in your own budget, you should also be able to look back and really show the results.
Thank you, Mark, for those additions. Would any of the rest of you have any other comments or questions on these presentations? Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. And Vernon, we'll just expect you to keep us up to speed, please. And then I understand that you're willing to loan that book out to all of us free of charge, so you'll be sharing that with us?
We have a very good librarian who can get it to all of us if we want it.
All right.
Dee,
Thank you.
Excuse me, Dee.
Councilor Sagers.
I just thought of a quick question, and that is, when would we know the questions that are going to be on the survey? Because that's going to be the real key about the surveys, the questions.
Well, as I say, it's a canned product, so we'll see it relatively shortly.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's not, that's one of the reasons, if you go to a custom-built one, you're probably looking at a minimum of $25,000. A huge chunk of that is developing the survey, customizing it. This one, that amount of customization is minimized. And the survey, and if it doesn't work, we can add to it in the future and move away from it to our own customized one. But for right now, to learn how to do it, we can go through it, but we just have to have some starting point, and this gives us a pretty good starting point that we can make use of.
So in the next couple of months, we might be able to see the 10 questions.
If we come to an agreement on how we're going to do
okay.
it, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Consensus, I should say, not agreement.
Thank you. And I should have also acknowledged Carla Paulson's help today, too. I apologize for not doing that after she left the room. Okay, with that, we'll run through our committee reports. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast again. Is that because it's kind of getting blustery out there, we need an update from Mark Cotter on snow expenditures.
Yes. Thank you, Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. Today we just want to take about 10 minutes or less to give you an update on snow operations. And what we've done is, as you know, from November to April, it's really our top priority, and so today we're going to give you an update on preparation, our budget, and the forecast. From a preparation standpoint, we have internally in Public Works about 120 people that participate in the operations, and then other departments supplement us to almost 100. And so total, we've got 220 people lined up to do the operations, the maintenance activities of the equipment, and also manage the operation. Galen Huber, which is in our audience today, will start to sleep a little bit lighter for the next 6 months. He leads that team and that effort and does a very good job. From the equipment standpoint, we've procured the 36 motor graders that the city routinely rents. We've also signed up the contractors that add an additional 28 motor graders, as well as 30 side dumps. Side dumps are used as we start the pickup activities for all the arterial streets and any street that has back a curb sidewalk. For your information, the city staff actually removes about 55% of the snow in the city, and the contracting force does about 45%. Our inventories of salt and de-icing equipment are full at capacity, and so right now we feel with reasonable temperatures and conditions, we probably have enough inventory to take us through January with the current amount of dome space that we have to hold us. And then you should have received this at home, but just recently the snow alert guide went out. There was 77,000 of those mailed out, and just have some very talented people that help to put that together every year and get it out in time. Also, when you go to the website, you'll see a lot of really good in-the-moment information that I think will be helpful to a citizen or yourself as you need additional information. Budget. The 2007 budget, we actually planned for 5 snow events. In the first quarter of this year, we had 5 events. And so it puts us in somewhat of a predicament with budget, even though the forecast looks reasonable, and we'll talk about that at the end. But the nearly 44 inches of snow that we received last year, 40 of that came in the first quarter. And so I think you'll see where I'm heading with this. Right now, I think if we receive a mild November and December, just like we did last year, budget-wise, we'd be fine, because essentially those are de-icing activities, and essentially that's done with our own staff. We have the inventories in place, and so we would be set. Further, even if we had 2, say, like small snow events, like 3-inch snows, we would have enough budget authority for our own staff, but also for the contracting staff to come in. But one of the things that we know that even though the models look favorable, we would like to be more conservative. And so what we're doing is just in tracking back budgets, we'd like to position ourselves for enough budget authority if we had 2 8-inch events. And so what we've done is that tells us what we need an additional $855,000 to add to the street department budget. Now, inside Public Works, which the general fund divisions of Public Works Admin, our office, engineering, and facilities were able to transfer in about $280,000 of that $855,000. So we would like to bring you a supplement for your consideration on the 19th of this month, which would address that additional $575,000. Again, if we have favorable weather, it'll be just like last year. And last year at this time, Public Works alone, several departments did, but Public Works alone turned back about $2.1 million back into the general fund. The street department was well over half of that turn back. And so one of the things that is key to us with this ordinance, we like to get through October to really see where our departments are at, also where the street maintenance and snow budgets are at, and that's why we like to get to this point before we identify if additional funds are needed. It also helps us to get to this point to see really what the 30, 60, and 90-day forecast is. The supplement ordinance that we'd like to bring to you, we'd bring to you in an emergency clause, so we could do the 2 readings and then forego the 20-day waiting period. So the 2 readings we'd like to do on November 19th and December 3rd. And then last, to end on a positive note, is the forecast. November and December do look like it's going to be normal temperatures, but below normal precipitation. And so I think that from a budgetary standpoint, we obviously are going to be much more confident if we have budget authority in place. However, there's a very good chance that there will be a turnback. And then last, we'd just like to add in that the work that we do with the National Weather Service, their team out there, works hand in hand with Galen's team and really helps us to predict the weather that's coming in and best position us for the operation. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer. We also have Galen Huber here to answer, and so, and if there's not, I will bring that ordinance forward in 2 weeks.
Councilor Costello.
Mark, I'm just curious, you mentioned earlier that there's 36 of the motor graders, the city, and how many of those are we leasing, and how do we lease those for a certain amount of time frame each year? Or?
We do. Each year, it's been our pattern that we lease them for 5 months, and then we turn those back.
And we must own some, don't we?
We own, I believe it's 5. I was going to say 4. We own 5 of those.
Okay, and then we lease another 36 more.
Right.
And then the contractors that we subcontract with have 28.
That's right.
What about trucks and plows?
Well, in all, I think city staff, it's really close to about 100 pieces of equipment that we turn out, but which includes all the trucks with the one-way blades, the sanding operations. It also is the loaders that are at the salt domes that are charging some of those, and so it's a fairly large fleet from the city standpoint, and the contractors really help supplement us on some of the outlying routes.
Well, I'm just curious, on a major snow event, so you've got the 36 blades, the 4 or 5 that we own, 28 contractors, and just roughly how many I'm just trying to see how many pieces of equipment will actually be out on the street pushing snow. So how many trucks would you say? 20 trucks?
About 120 pieces of equipment.
120.
And then we, as you may know, we ran 12-hour shifts. And one of the things that really impacted our budget last year is for about 6 weekends in a row, the snow events happened. And so just about when the crews were ready to go home for the weekend, the snow came, and so it was full overtime all weekend long. And so it's always nice from a planning standpoint if those snow events come during the week. So.
Councilor Brown?
Just a procedural question for Deborah. With an emergency clause, it needs how many votes to pass?
I think it needs 6. Does it need a 2/3 majority?
Majority, simple majority.
Simple majority? Not a 2/3.
Councilor Jameson?
Just a question, Mark. With the use of the liquids and so forth is more corrosive than some other forms of snow removal, but do you have any resistance from the contractors of putting their equipment in that type of an environment?
With the de-icing
Yes.
chemicals? I certainly haven't been aware of any, and I think from our standpoint, there are different chemicals that the DOT uses for a different environment. We've got a higher demand for really getting a good skid resistance out there. So this chemical that we use really breaks through the ice quickly and has a very good residual, and so I can also ask Galen if he hears any resistance.
Galen Huber, Street Utility Manager. We haven't heard anything from contractors about it, and we use calcium chloride. The state uses magnesium chloride. We found that when it gets below 20 degrees, magnesium chloride can get a little bit greasy on you if you don't stay on top of it. And so with the calcium chloride, we have a better product below when the temperatures get around 0 or even below 0.
And then I know that we put a wash system in last year. Is that available to the contractor to run his equipment through that also at the end of the snow?
We can make it available to them. Last year I didn't notice any contractors going through that wash bay.
I just at a charge. I mean, I'm not saying it ought to be free, but it's something that it might just encourage some of those contractors to put that equipment out there.
That's a good idea. Anything else?
Mark, thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
And Councilor Brown, and I think you are going to still in the near future line up or kind of organize this for a levy tour, is that correct?
Yes, I was going to talk about that under Public Services Committee.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and run to our weekly committee reports then. Let's start with the Audit Committee. Councilor Kavanaugh.
We had two audit reports that were approved by the committee, so you'll be seeing them shortly.
Okay. Fiscal Committee, Councilor Costello.
We're going to meet after this meeting. We're going to have a brief discussion on liquor licenses, issuing liquor licenses, and the Municipal League's proposal on that, and then also to talk about Deborah's application to the ICMA. And the Fiscal Committee has a request that we'd like to request the Land Use Committee to consider delaying your meeting maybe 15 or 20 minutes because we anticipate a very brief Fiscal Committee meeting, and several of us would like to attend the Land Use Committee meeting. So,
I don't know if we can accommodate that.
If your
No
heart so
problem.
desire.
No problem.
Sounds like that you've accomplished your goal there. Okay, Land Use Committee, Councilor Litz, or Councilor Jameson?
We
sorry.
will delay our meeting and allow time for those folks.
And you're
who
welcome to
attend.
attend ours, so.
And that's the only thing we have is the video lottery ordinance.
Okay, Public Services Committee, Councilor Brown.
As Dee had alluded to, we were trying to coordinate a time when those who haven't been on a tour of the levees could get out there and do that. I believe Councilor Knudsen has done it already. Councilor Staggers, were you on a tour?
No.
Okay, I was misunderstood. I thought you were also on a tour. We were looking at next Tuesday after the holiday. I don't know if that is going to work. I'll send out an email to everyone, and if you could reply and let me know your interest level, and I'll pitch out several dates that might be available. Wait, Deborah might have something to add to that.
Sorry, we were looking at provisions of law. I also think that there may be an opportunity to be available for those who cannot make the levee tour, which would be about 2 hours in length, that some members of the administration, I think Jody will work with, to help do a video tour for those of you making that available. So you can benefit from the information, but not take the 2 hours out of your day if you don't have the time. So.
And I also know from the tour I went on the end of last week, it's very, very fascinating. I just, very interesting. I encourage you to try to go. But if the time that most of the counselors can't go doesn't work for you, I know that Mark Cotter, our Public Works Director, is very willing to arrange another time for one or two of you that works better. So there's lots of flexibility there open to you, and so just make your wishes known, please. Okay, open discussion. Any items on open discussion for any of you, from any of you? Just a couple of housekeeping things. Would you make a note of this on your calendar? I know it's hard to believe it's already early November, but we talked among ourselves a little bit about trying to do some kind of a holiday gathering, and finally we've just decided on a good compromise, and Deborah suggested this, and I think it's actually just a wonderful compromise for everyone involved. And on Tuesday, December 18th, here at the Carnegie, we're just going to have coffee and cookies, and counselors are welcome to bring their spouses if they wish, and we'll have the city clerk's office, of course, and I think we'll just invite the county commissioners, and of course the press is welcome. So, Jonathan, we hope you'll do some cookie baking before then, and anyway, but I just wanted to have you put that date on your calendar, so there's a better chance that maybe more of you can stop by for a little while on the 18th of December from, let's just say 4 to 6 and come and go kind of thing. And then also, while I'm talking about December dates, you might want to also jot down on your busy December schedule that on Wednesday the 19th of that month, that's our regular breakfast club. And it would be nice to have, that's at 7:30 in the morning, as you know, at Leonardo's restaurant in the pavilion. And that particular topic that day will be, we will meet with legislators to just, share our thoughts before they head off to Pier on January 8th. And so I wanted you to put both of those dates on your calendar. And then I was telling Councilor Brown the other day that it was fun to look at the college basketball, the new magazine. Not that actually, I have to confess I didn't find this on my own, but anyway, it's fun when you get to page 153 and they talk about the Summit League and they talk about the tournaments moving to Sioux Falls, South Dakota in 2009 and 2010. So that's fun that we made the magazine, and Vernon reminded me that I should share that with all of you. And anything else from any of you? Councilor Costello?
No, other than with fiscal committee, we'll start immediately after this meeting to accommodate land use.
All right, and thank you all for being with us, and thank you those in the public and for listening, and we will see you. And remember, next week we do not meet on Monday because of Veterans Day. We meet on Tuesday, November 13th, and we will be right back here at 4 p.m. next Tuesday, November 13th. Thank you.